We will now call this meeting to order. Good afternoon and welcome to the second meeting of the Assembly Committee on Natural Resources. Our overflow room is in room 3142 here in Carson. I don't think there's a need for one in Elko or in Vegas, but I could be off on that. Will the committee secretary please call the roll?
Assembly members Considine.
Present.
DeLong.
Present.
Gurr.
Here.
Hanson.
Here.
Jackson. Karras.
Here.
Kasama. LaRue Hatch.
Here.
Marzola, sorry.
Present.
Watts.
Here.
And Chair Nath Anderson.
And I am present. If you would please mark Assembly Member Kasama excused, absent excused. Again, I'd like to welcome everyone here to this meeting, whether it is here in Carson City, as well as anyone joining by video conference in Las Vegas, Elko, or listening online. Our agenda for today includes a presentation from the Nevada Department of Agriculture, 2 bill hearings, and a possible work session on AB 171. Before we get started, I have just a few housekeeping announcements. First, everyone, if you could please silence your electronic devices. Committee members will be using their laptops to view handouts and other documents. Please do not view this as a sign of disrespect or inattention. We expect courtesy and respect in our interactions during the meeting, even if we may not agree with another person's position. If you are presenting or testifying, please make sure to sign in at the table by the door and provide a business card to the committee assistant. When testifying, please turn on the microphone, clearly state and spell your name and the organization or agency you represent, if any, for the record. Please turn off the microphone each time you are done speaking. I would like to note that all exhibits and meeting materials must be submitted electronically to our committee manager by no later than 12 p.m. on the business day before the meeting, and 15 hard copies brought to the meeting for members of the public. Similarly, proposed amendments to a bill being heard by the committee must be submitted electronically no later than 12 p.m. on the business day prior to the meeting. Please include the bill number, a statement of intent, and your name and contact information. Public comment will be taken at the end of the meeting. Each person will be limited to 2 minutes, and additionally, members of the public may submit written testimony or public comment to the committee up to 24 hours after a hearing. And finally, please note that agenda items may be taken in a different order than listed. 2 or more agenda items may be combined for consideration. An item may be removed from an agenda, or discussion of an item on an agenda may be delayed at any moment. With that, we will begin the presentation from the Department of Agriculture. Presenting today are Director Gokachia and Kathy Balkin, Administrator for the Division of Administrative Services. Welcome to the committee. Please go ahead and introduce yourself for the record.
Sorry, have not had the opportunity to use this mic yet. Still looking for the other buttons. Dr. J.J. Goycochea, Goicoechea. I am the Director in the Nevada Department of Agriculture, and this is Administrator Balkin with Administrative Services, should you guys have any questions. In the interest of time, I do have a slide deck. I'm going to go through them pretty quick. I'll probably skip some slides. We have a little disease situation that we're still managing at the Department of Ag, so we'd like to get through as quick as we could, and I'm sure you would as well. So our mission at the department is preserve, protect, and promote Nevada agriculture. This picture was actually taken last fall. This was an all-staff meeting we had in Sparks. We had not had an all-staff meeting in several years, so we felt it was important to bring everybody in. This is one of our goals for internal customer service at the agency, and making sure our partners inside the building are as happy as our partners outside. Statewide economic review, Nevada food and agriculture output in 17 was 5.5 billion, and in 22 was 6.5 billion, $1 billion increase over that period. So agriculture is definitely growing. You can see the largest component of that, food and beverage manufacturing, then agriculture, farming, ranching, and support. Some economic outputs per county. I won't go through all of those. You can read those yourselves, as well as our increases over the year. And you can see our sectors all continue to increase year over year. From 17 to 22, we saw a steady increase of cash receipts in both sectors of livestock and crop production. Obviously, we expect that same trend over the last 2 years with the market prices we have had. Some of our producers on the hay and grass side of things probably aren't nearly as happy this last year, but hopefully we can see a balance of those markets. Nevada farm statistics, we did see a decline in the number of farms, but we saw an increase in the acreage. And that's just as we see more consolidation. Dylan did not put this on the slide, but we are actually one of the only states in the union that actually saw a decrease in the average age of our producers. Nationwide has been increasing, and we actually came down by 1/10 of a year, so we'll take it. Again, food and beverage, big part, 466.2 million in 23 is what we're doing. That's coffee beans, mate, sodas, craft beverage. So here's our divisions. Administrative Services, myself, Deputy Director Doug Ferris. Division of Plant Health and Compliance, Administrator Megan Brown. Ray Saliga is down in the Las Vegas office, Deputy Administrator. Chad Sustinovich, Administrator Animal Industry, he's in Elko. Deputy Administrator Will Dawson's in the Sparks office. We got Dr. Bill Strajewski, who you'll hear from next on his bill and measurement standards. And then Division of Food and Nutrition Administrator Patricia Hoppy's in Las Vegas, and Deputy Administrator Brittany Malley is in Sparks. We have leadership in all three of our offices across the state, and that is not an accident. That is the way we want it, so we can better reach our constituents. 13 members of the board, don't need to go through that. You guys see that. We touch pretty much everything in the entire supply chain, whether it's transportation or actually that workforce development that we do through our ag literacy program at the department as well. Plant health and compliance, a major part of what we do here, pesticide training, and making sure that those workers are safe when we're using such things. We do have a nursery program, noxious weeds, obviously entomology, so we will not spend a lot of time on Mormon crickets today. We're gonna go right by. I'm sure that'll come up some other time. Huge recycling program that we have, recycling containers of those pesticides. That's one of our flagship deals that we're really proud of. Animal industry, a lot of livestock disease detection, and that's predominantly what we're focused on the last 2 weeks. Also food safety for our dairy lab and also our new in-state meat and poultry inspection. Our inspectors will be getting out into those facilities very quickly as soon as our FSIS training is done. Measurement standards, again, Dr. Bill Strajewski leads this up, and you'll hear on this on petroleum. We do everything from lubricants to make sure they're consistent with commercial standards. I should back up on there also all our measuring devices. So if you're buying anything at the grocery store, any jewelry scales all the way up to our large over-the-road scales, those are in fact inspected by us and to make sure they are in compliance. Division of Food and Nutrition, it's a fairly large division for us, and we use predominantly 100% federal funds in here to provide access healthy foods to Nevada's seniors, children, and insecure populations. We've got a list of all of our programs. You guys have a copy of this program as well. Senior nutrition programs, we're awfully proud of a lot that we're doing on there, and I know that, you know, our booklets that we give out to our seniors so that they can go to our farmers markets in order to get those fresh fruits and vegetables has been very successful and very popular across the state. And then administrative services, that's for Kathy and her team, and literally without them, the rest of this agency doesn't work. But I should mention global trade and economic development. That's a big part of what we do as well. We do a lot of outbound and inbound missions for trade. Nevada is often overlooked in that category, but we do have quite a large program in there, and we're awfully proud of what we're doing and continue to expand that. And then our IT services, we have a great IT team, and we're actually building a lot of platforms in-house. So something has changed from the last time I presented before you guys 2 years ago. We developed our own internal platform for real-time online animal entry permits that can be accessed 24/7. So we don't have to pick up the phone. We were literally receiving faxes still. And so our team inside built this. Looking ahead, we're just gonna continue to do more of the same. Customer service focus inside and out. Food safety program, we're really gonna be focusing a lot on that. We are working with Health and Human Services to see if we can't coordinate more of what we're doing there and perhaps assume part of that, because so that we're not sending inspectors, the two departments across different sides of the state. Absolutely no reason to do that. We can look for some efficiencies there. And then I'm a firm believer in building that relationship with local government and non-governmental organizations, because I was there once. And with that, I thank you, and we will rest for questions. I tried to make that as quick as I could, Madam Chair.
I so appreciate it, Dr. Kukuchia. That was quick with a lot of information, so greatly appreciate it. Are there any questions? And thank you for the informative information. Do you have any questions for the director? Assemblymember DeLong.
Thank you, Chair. Appreciate the abbreviated presentation. Could you just elaborate a little bit on the recent outbreak, just kind of where we are and what the plans are?
Madam Chair, do you wish I go through you or direct?
Please go direct.
Assemblymember DeLong, yes, thank you for that question. So,
Don't forget, please, Dr.
Dr. Goycochea, for the record. You thought I would have known that, huh? I apologize. So, recent outbreak of H5N1, or we're now just referring it to H5 due to a recent discovery made in northern Nevada that is a little bit different sequence. We started in early December, with the herd in southern Nevada, and that was in fact the B313 variant. That is what was circulating across the entire country since last March. We made it our goal to keep that in southern Nevada and not let that get to our northern dairies. We were successful. Unfortunately, we saw a second spillover event from wild birds in northern Nevada. We now have a D1.1 variant in our dairies in Fallon. This has never been seen before in dairy cattle anywhere. Why it chose Fallon, we do not know. Obviously, we do have a lot of interface with wildlife and wildfowl there. This variant was first seen last August, September in the Pacific Flyway. It is now in all 4 flyways. So it is very prevalent in the environment. The longer any virus is in an environment, we all know, the more likely it is to change. And so not surprised that we are seeing changes, but we are concerned that we saw a second spillover event. Today we have 6 herds quarantined in northern Nevada. We tested 11 additional dairies today. We will continue to do that. I do want to put on the record that the reason we found this, we got very aggressive with our silo testing. Those are the tanks at our liquid milk plants across the state. We had reason to believe that we may have more virus out in the environment than we knew. So that's why we did that. That is how we found this detection. We went back after we had those detections in both plants in the north, and we checked every farm that had milk in those tanks. And that is how we got to where we are today. We have asked and received a virtual deployment of a USDA epidemiologist. She is a very bright veterinarian that I've worked with in the past, as Dr. Rolfe, our state veterinarian. So she's helping with our epi studies on that. We should have the final one of those done. They are literally 23 pages apiece. We should have the final one of those done tomorrow, and then we'll start if we have any more positives from there. PPE. We want to make sure all our dairy workers have all that equipment that they need. We're working lockstep with Health and Human Services and with Central Nevada Health District. This has been a very unified structure from the beginning. I can't say enough how much we appreciate our partners, and we can't do it without them. I will not sit here and lie to you. We will be in this for months. We have a long ways to go. My goal and Dr. Rolfe's goal is to put this in a corner and see if we'll let it burn out. We are very concerned about what that wildlife nexus is going to do and where else it may already be that they haven't found.
Very quick.
Thanks for the detail.
Thank you. Any other questions? So with that answer, I again would like to thank you for giving us this time today to present, because you have been on top of this information, and we know how some of these things have to be made very quickly. So I do have one other question. With the PPE, those items, are those readily available for our workers, or is this something that because we went through a number of years ago when we did not have enough equipment, is that equipment available for our workers?
Madam Chair, Director Goycochea, for the record, yes. So far, we are keeping up with those PPE needs. DEM has been a very valuable partner in this as well. From the early days of the outbreak, in Nye County, we were accessing their stashes and we were transporting PPE down there. We are doing the same here. Today, getting as much as we can. We did send some over to Central Nevada Health the end of last week from our warehouse here in Carson City. I would also like to mention that the USDA has financial support for these producers, and Dr. Rolfe and myself, along with the area vet in charge for the USDA, are working through that paperwork to get them that financial support so they can purchase more. We're really trying to bridge that immediate gap with them, and then they can purchase more as we go forward. We may see an increase as this continues to spread and increase demand on that. I will be sure and follow up with you if we need some more action, but right now we are meeting those needs.
Thank you so much. And could you clarify what DEM stands for?
Division of Emergency Management, Director Goycochea for the record.
Thank you so much. Any other questions? Assemblymember Hanson.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for being here. It's good to see you. I wish under different circumstances. You mentioned 6 herds, I think, in Nevada, or was it northern Nevada? It was all of Nevada. And if so, can you give us an idea of how many numbers you're talking about in the herd?
Assemblymember Hanson, Director Goycochea for the record. So we have 6 herds in northern Nevada that are currently quarantined with the D1.1 variant. There's a little north of 14,000 cows in those 6 quarantines. The one premise that we have from December, we are managing it as one. It is actually 4 herds and 3 barns, but it is one facility. And we have 22,000 roughly cows quarantined in that facility.
Probably know this, but just dairy cows, is this also in, beef cow population? If you could clarify that.
Assemblymember Hanson, Director Goycochea for the record. To date, this has only been found and documented in dairy cows. Part of that reason is the close proximity with which we work with those dairy cows, number one. But number two, this virus has a great affinity for mammary glands and the udders, and the amount of viral load in the milk is just unreal when we test that. We have not found it in our beef. FSIS, Food Safety Inspection Service, is testing at all of our harvest plants, and they have not found any in the beef either to date.
Thank you. Vice Chair LaRue Hatch.
Chair, thank you for speaking on this. I think, as we hear 6 herds, 14,000 cows, people may get concerned. And so I just want to get on the record. Should people be concerned about the milk that they are purchasing in the store? Or are you handling it and we don't need to worry about stuff that we are buying off the shelf?
I remember direct to you, Director Goycochea. So our milk supply is safe. Pasteurization renders this virus inactive. It has from the beginning, and it continues to do so. Our meat supply is also safe. Proper handling of our meat and cooking to internal temperature, there is no risk to the public for consuming these products. Thankfully, we are not a raw milk state. A lot of raw milk states are having a different problem with that, but we are not a raw milk state, and everything that you buy in the grocery store is safe.
Thank you so much for that information. Asking any other questions? Seeing none. Thank you, Director Goycochea, for presenting today.
I've been called worse, ma'am. Thank you.
Double D. All right, so we will be sticking with the Department of Agriculture, and we will move on to our first bill hearing. And I'd like to open the hearing on AB 29, which revises provisions relating to motor vehicle fuel. We have the Administrator for the Division of Measurement Standards, Dr. William Strajewski. Yes, presenting on this bill today. Thank you for joining us, and please introduce yourself for the record when you are ready.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and committee. For the record, my name is Bill Strajewski. That is Striejewske, and I am the Administrator of the Division of Measurement Standards within the Department of Agriculture. I appreciate the the time that you've given me today, and I will try and be as brief as JJ was. So, Chapter 590 of the NRS deals with motor vehicle fuel and other petroleum products. And within that chapter, one of the sections, specifically 590.160 through 330, deals with advertisement of such products. And when I started doing some background into this, this came into the NRS during the 1951 legislative session and is essentially unchanged in the 75 years since then. Cross out a word here, add a different word there, that's about it. And we found in the last few years especially that this was creating a difficult problem for both the department and for industry. For industry's part, they were having trouble parsing the language and figuring out exactly what we wanted from them, you know, especially as the industry around them was changing. And likewise, you know, the current makeup of the industry has changed somewhat from what it was in 1950. A lot of station owners only own 1 or 2 stations, and they might be branded, but they aren't really under the same sort of corporation oversight and guidance that they were at one time. Now, the Petroleum Marketers Association, which now goes under a new name that I'm not quite used to yet, gives them a lot of guidance and support, but there were questions, even from the PMA. And from the state's point of view, at times we weren't exactly sure what it was we were regulating. So, haven't kept up with modernization in a number of different areas. And so this bill is trying to clarify that for both the department and for industry, and to deal with some of these changes. There's new fuels on the market, there's new ways of advertising, different ways that people are paying for their fuel. Also, we feel that this bill satisfies Governor Lombardo's policy priorities, specifically 5.2, which is dealing with outstanding customer service. We think that this really increases, you know, the customer's right to know and ability to know exactly what they're getting. You know, they see a highway sign and then they pull off and they find out that the price is different than what they saw on the sign. We're trying to cut those issues. Okay, very quickly, hopefully, no, very quickly. A few of the changes. Section 2 addresses a lot of different things that have to do with pump labeling requirements and incorporates part of the Code on Federal Regulations, which clearly lines those out. Section 2 also states that reduced price is if a reduced price is available, the higher pre-discounted price needs to be shown. And the conditions for receiving the discounted price. Maybe it's cheaper to buy cash versus credit, for example. We did not have any language dealing with oxygenates in fuel. Most of the fuel that we have in the state now has ethanol in it, could have other oxygenates, but at any rate, this will add language around the various labeling of oxygenates. If you are at an unattended station like a card lock, we will establish statute that contact information for the owner operator must be conspicuously present in case of an issue there. Section 3 gives more guidance on requirements for labeling pumps that dispense specifically renewable fuels such as biodiesel, biodiesel diesel blends, and ethanol flex fuels, which are more commonly referred to as E85. Sections 4 through 7 make some smaller changes. Section 8 updates the manner in which pricing is advertised on advertising media and at the pump. Again, such as if there's different prices, cash versus credit, whether it has to do with a discount through a supermarket loyalty program, or if a car wash is attached to the gas station and you get a discount for that, these sorts of situations. And then finally, the existing statutes currently are really exacting about the sizes and colors of numbers and letters. And some of this is not only unnecessary, but it's too restrictive. Another section, the way it's written, was just very difficult to interpret for everyone. And so sections 8 and 9 address those conditions to make the language easier, again, for both industry and for the state to interpret and to follow. And additionally, section 9 adds language aimed at electronic signage, specifically including the requirement that it be clearly visible both during the day and the night. And with that, again, my contact information. I appreciate your time, and I am ready for any questions you might have. Thank you.
You, Doctor, excuse me. Yeah, you're like, whoa. So thank you for being so quick about that, and the little bit of a history is always nice to have. I believe Assemblymember DeLong has a question. Any other questions? I do. I just want to verify that this would be taking effect October 1, since there is no date on this, or is there a possible other idea that you're considering for as to when this would be taking effect?
I don't believe there's anything that needs to go beyond October 1.
So it would not, so it would not be required by March 1. You're thinking the typical time of October 1.
Correct, yes.
Great. Thank you so much.
For the record, Bill Strajewski. All right.
No other questions? All right.
Thank you very much.
So much. Don't you love that? So just a reminder, if you would like to testify in support, if you support the bill in its entirety. Testify in opposition if you oppose anything in the bill, even if it's just one small thing, but you love the rest. And finally, testimony in neutral if you're not taking a position, it's just providing us with small amounts of information. Please limit your testimony to 20 minutes, and as typical, 2 minutes, excuse me. We're gonna start doing some karaoke in here big time. I was looking through the next line. Please limit total testimony of support for 20 minutes. Total testimony support for opposition would be 20 minutes, and neutral would be 20 minutes. So we will start the testimony in support of AB 29 for up to 2 minutes per person, starting in Carson City.
Madam Chair, Vice Chair, Peter Kruger with this is the new name, Energy Convenience Association Nevada, ECAN, formerly Fueling Nevada or Nevada Petroleum Marketers. We're here in support of this legislation. As Dr. Trujewski said, really this is about consumer information. This is the whole bill. For all of us, I think most of us, well, I'm going to assume all of us have a motor vehicle, and regardless of how it's powered, we go to some type of a station, some type of a fueling station, and it's at that point we're the only industry that I know of that posts their prices on the street, and it's been like that for years, and it continues to be like this. This bill doesn't change any of that. All this bill does is when the consumer, you and I, drive into our retail station of choice. The gas dispenser, we all call it a pump, is labeled in a certain way. This bill also addresses, and equally important to the industry, are those price signs that are usually big, colorful, and really are a form of advertising to attract you and I to that particular location. And this bill addresses that. And some of the problems that industry had, as Dr. Chusky mentioned, was the actual size of the letters were very specific in the current legislation or in the current statute. The colors really meant something and do mean something, and this doesn't change any of this. This simply goes ahead and specifies, so it's in clear language, what those colors shall be, what the size will be, and makes it easy for both industry when they upgrade a sign. Oh, you're so very welcome. And I'm here in support. Thank you very much, Madam Chairwoman.
Good afternoon, members of the Assembly Committee on Natural Resources. My name is Brian Wachter. I'm the Senior Vice President of the Retail Association of Nevada. We too are in favor of AB 29. We appreciate the work of the I didn't remember the new name, the Petroleum Marketers Association. I will learn it, as well as the department. We would like to say, though, that it's unfortunate that retailers have to kind of jumping through some hoops because that the fees on credit cards and debit cards are so prohibitively expensive that we have two different prices for both of those. And we think that that is something that the legislature could take some steps on ultimately down the road. But we appreciate the opportunity to be able to clarify the rules now. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak in support? Seeing none here in Carson City, anybody in Elko or in Las Vegas? Seeing nobody coming to the mic? How about AVH? Is there anyone who would like to testify in support of AB 29? And just a reminder, the number is on the agenda if you'd like to call in.
Chair, the public line is open and working, but we have no callers to testify at this time.
Thank you so much. We will now hear testimony in opposition to AB 29. Anyone in opposition in Carson City? Seeing no one come to the table. Checking Las Vegas and Elko and good old AVH.
There are still no callers.
Finally, neutral. Anyone here in Carson City who wishes to testify in neutral to AB 29? Las Vegas? Elko? Again, seeing no one, AVH, is there anyone who would like to testify in neutral to AB 29?
There are still no callers to testify.
Thank you so much. Dr. Strajewski, excuse me, would you like to make any closing remarks?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, for the record, Bill Strajewski. My only closing remarks are that I appreciate the support both from the Energy Convenience Association of Nevada and the Retail Association. I hope that you take this broad spectrum of support in your considerations, and I thank you for your time this afternoon.
Thank you, sir. We'll now close the hearing on AB 29 and open the hearing on AB 171, which authorizes the state quarantine officer to order the temporary suspension of certain prohibitions relating to the sale, offer, exposing for sale, transport for sale of eggs produced by egg-laying hens in certain enclosures under certain circumstances. We have Assemblymember Watts presenting on this bill. I think you need no introduction to this committee. We know you pretty well, but as always, please introduce yourself for the record anyway, as well as any co-presenters who might be joining. And thank you for bringing this language forward so quickly. When you are ready, Assemblymember Watt.
All right, thank you, Chair, members of the committee. For the record, I am Howard Watts. I represent Assembly District 15, right in the heart of Clark County. It's my pleasure to present Assembly Bill 171, for your consideration today. I will be joined by the Department of Agriculture. And before I begin, I just want to thank the department for their work and collaboration on this. I want to thank Speaker Yeager for helping provide a bill so that we can address this issue, as well as the Humane Society, who will be coming up to discuss a friendly amendment. I want to talk a little bit about why this bill is coming before everyone and provide a little bit of high-level context. I'll then turn it over to the department to provide some additional details. I'll provide a brief walkthrough of the bill language for the committee. We'll have the Humane Society provide a very brief walkthrough of their proposed amendment, and then are glad to take any questions that you may have. So I think everyone here has heard from constituents about issues with the egg supply in the state, and probably everyone's experienced them firsthand. And it can vary even over the course of a day. One store you go into, shelves might be completely empty. Another, you can definitely see a shortage. Others might have a supply, but across the board, we know that the prices have gone up and gone up tremendously. There's really one cause for this, and that's the avian flu, the bird flu. You've heard it's transcending bird populations as well and affecting other animals and can even affect people. But since 2022, roughly 20 million egg-laying chickens have died or been culled as a result of this disease outbreak. And that's created a really significant supply chain crunch and issue. In 2021, I brought forward, and this legislature passed with bipartisan support, Assembly Bill 399, which established cage-free standards for all eggs that are produced or sold within the state. This had Nevada join a regional effort to move towards more humane conditions for our egg-laying hens. And it's also been something that's been embraced by major retailers as well. Target and other stores have also made an effort to go in this direction. And while there's some upfront costs, we work to build in a timeline to phase it in so that retailers, suppliers, producers could all prepare and help implement this law. One thing that we didn't foresee was this massive bird flu pandemic and the impact that it's had to the supply chain. And as a result, there is not flexibility to adjust some of those standards when we're facing an emergency situation. That's exactly what Assembly Bill 171 seeks to do. It helps add additional tools and flexibility to our experts in the Department of Agriculture to help address the egg supply chain when we face an emergency situation such as a major animal disease outbreak. I want to be clear about a couple of things. One is that we are always going to protect the health and safety of our food supply for Nevadans. That is my commitment, that's the department's commitment as well. So any flexibility that we're providing is never going to take a step back from those core health and safety requirements that we have. But what we are looking to do is, in those emergency moments, take every action that we possibly can to get more eggs onto the shelves, more eggs available to folks here in the state of Nevada, in the sincere hope that that is going to help drive the prices of eggs down and help save Nevada families money on their one of their core needs, which is groceries. This, I think, is a very thoughtful policy. We're relying on expertise within our Department of Agriculture, who's dealing with these issues every single day. We are limiting the timeline and the applicability of this to those emergency situations because we don't want to step backwards. Ultimately, when our supply chain is working well, we're going to have affordable and high quality eggs for everybody. But when we're facing this severe supply chain issue, we want to make sure that we take every action that we can, again, while protecting the health and safety of Nevadans. So with that, I would like to invite Director Goycochea up to share a little bit of additional perspective on this issue.
Thank you, Assemblymember Watts. Director Goycochea for the record. So I won't reach you the same cabbage that Assemblymember Watts did. I just want to give a little context of where we're at and why. As he mentioned, and I talked about in my presentation, we are in the middle of a high-path avian influenza outbreak. This definitely hits our laying hens quite substantially. The reason I want to give a little background on why I went with 120 days, because I'm sure there might be some questions on that. The absolute fastest that we can bring a pullet on to laying eggs, it'd be 126 days. So I could have went a lot longer and scientifically backed that up, but there are always pullets in the supply chain coming on. This isn't a hard stop, hard start, hard stop. While we do have to depopulate barns at times, those are hard stops, but we can slowly start to repopulate those and we ease that tension. I'm going to cite a USDA report from January 16th. Table egg layers losses due to high path totaled 13.6 million birds in December alone. 13.6 million in December alone. In the last quarter of the year, 2024, 58.9% of all table egg layers lost to high path were in states with cage-free egg laws, resulting in even higher supply chains of the specialty eggs. So for whatever reason, those states were hit hardest, probably the cycle of the disease and why we're there now. So we are in that down part of it in the first quarter of 25. December flock for cage-free layers was 120.3 million birds. That only represents 38.7% of the entire egg-laying population in the nation. There is a population that we can source additional eggs from in a time of emergency. And that is all we are asking for, and that is all that we worked with Assemblymember Watts on. I do want to thank the Humane Society of the United States, and they will be presenting an amendment for their work on this, and they actually had the foresight to give us more flexibility on other sources or other types of eggs that we could be bringing to the market. So this has really been a unified front from the agency, from Assemblymember Watts, and from the Humane Society of the United States.
Thank you, Director. Howard Watts for the record. So you've heard how we've been particularly impacted by this outbreak. And again, it's not that cage-free is the issue. I've done some research myself, and you'll see the supply crunch is hitting states all over the country. Prices of eggs have gone up, whether a state has gone cage-free or not. But you also have heard how just because of the dynamics of this, how some of these facilities have been hit particularly hard. So with that, I'm going to very quickly walk you through the bill. Then I'm going to ask the Humane Society to come up and walk through the amendment, which, as Director Goycochea stated, expands the toolbox that is available to help address this issue. So Section 1 allows the state quarantine officer within the department to temporarily suspend certain sections of law. Particularly, this references the cage-free statutes and requirements that we have. That is conditioned on a few things. There has to be a foreign animal disease identified by the U.S. Department of Agriculture or another federally declared disease emergency or natural disaster. Furthermore, you can see within the start of that Section 1, subsection 1, that has to affect the egg supply chain. So there are multiple things that have to happen for this to be an option on the table. After that, the state quarantine officer can issue this temporary suspension. That suspension can last no more than 120 consecutive days. Again, because of the different dynamics that we're dealing with, there can be up to but no more than 2 suspensions during a calendar year. And again, that could be that we do it and we start to get things under control, but we might see another wave come through. And you know, we're in February right now. We want to have the option that if something has to happen further on towards the end of the year, that is a possibility. So that just, again, make sure that we're balancing the flexibility to take action with the fact that we want the overall standards that we have in place to be the default. Section 2, Section 3, Section 4, all really just make conforming changes. As a matter of fact, I believe all the rest of the sections of the bill make conforming changes, and I'll just note that in Section 8, this also gives the department the authority to craft regulations to manage this going forward, as long as they conform with the rest of statute. So that is the bill as it was drafted, and now I'd like to have a representative from the Humane Society come up to discuss the amendment, which again adds some additional tools to the toolbox to address the bird flu epidemic.
So much, whenever you're ready.
I was going to say good morning. It's afternoon. Good afternoon, Chair Anderson and members of the committee. My name is Rebecca Goff, and I'm the Nevada State Director for the Humane Society of the United States. We're here today to submit a friendly amendment to AB 171. We understand that there is an egg supply crisis in Nevada and that something needs to be done to bring relief to our consumers. But we felt that this bill did not go far enough. Limiting the regulation suspension to only cage-free eggs does not give the maximum flexibility needed to help restore supplies during a time of crisis as defined in the bill. We're simply proposing that the bill be expanded so that all the regulations can be explored. I'm going to pass it off to my colleague, Warren Hardy. Oh, he's over here to go over the details.
Good afternoon, Chair Anderson, members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. My name is Warren Hardy, representing the Humane Society of the United States. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. I always love appearing before this committee, but I also have the extra pleasure of picking up another Goikichiism today. Rechew the same cabbage, I think is what you said, Director. Director's Goikichia's father, the great Pete Goikichia, one time told me not to tie myself to something I can't ride. And that is on my desk at home. Great advice. I won't tell you the other one. Okay, I'll tell you. He said you cannot pick up the clean side of a turd. Great wisdom for those of you who know new Senator Goikichia. All right, okay, I digress. I appreciate it. I think you can see my love for that man. Senator Goikichia, my life is measurably better because he was in it. I want to thank Assemblyman Watts and Director Goikichia for being open to this concern. We worked hard on that bill in 2021. We think it was a great bill for the state of Nevada, for the egg suppliers, and for the animals, which is always a priority of the Humane Society. We understand that things are fluid, things change. And when we read the bill, we understood the need or desire to look at the cage-free regulation, but we also felt very strongly that we ought to look at all regulations or anything that might potentially touch on this issue. And so the amendment that you have before you, and I hope you each have a copy, does just that. It gives the director and the department maximum flexibility to look at all regulations, including the potential, making sure there's no prohibition to using grade B eggs, reducing governmental purchases if it makes sense to focus on returning egg supply to the consumers, and streamlining rules to help egg flocks, private individual small owners bring their eggs to market. We also, one of the things that confuses us a little bit at the Humane Society and confuses me in general is why at one location eggs are $6 a dozen and at another location they're $16.95 a dozen. And so what we are respectfully requesting is that we add a provision to provide a report on potential the causes of those the price discrepancies. And so pretty simple amendment. It does exactly what the Assemblyman said, broadens it. And with that, I won't rechew the same cabbage. Thank you.
Howard Watts for the record. So Just again to clarify, so this proposed amendment adds to this bill these additional tools. Grade B eggs, again, meet all health and safety standards, generally have kind of cosmetic or aesthetic issues. So we want to see how can we get those onto the store shelves. Governmental purchasing, I know the department has helped release some eggs to help deal with this. We want to make sure that that we're not pulling back into that supply when we know that customers need them. We have no commercial scale egg producers here in the state of Nevada, but we have small operators, and so if there are ways that we can help get those eggs onto the shelves, we want to look at that as well. And then again, I think because of the price shock that folks are feeling, we want to do a little bit more digging and have some more information so that we can see if there's anything else that collectively we need to do to address this. So, do you have anything to add? All right. Thank you very much. That concludes our presentation. I'm glad to answer any questions you may have.
Well, thank you, everyone, for working so closely together. I have a feeling that there might be a few questions, and I believe Assemblymember Considine has a question.
Thank you for this presentation. Is there a timeline for the, writing the regs, having them go into effect, and then potentially seeing the results on the shelves?
Thank you for that question. Howard Watts for the record. So I want to differentiate, there's two portions. So these statutory changes will go into effect upon passage and approval. That will give that authority to the state quarantine officer as soon as this bill is signed into law. The department will also get the ability to conduct rulemaking. That is a more lengthy process, but it can also include additional detail outside of what's in the statute here, but it will have to conform to the requirements that we are proposing within this bill. So that can add some additional depth and clarity, but that's going to go through its own process that's honestly probably going to go well past the legislative session. But this toolbox will be available to the Department of Agriculture as soon as this legislation is enacted.
Assemblymember DeLong.
Thank you, Chair. I had a bunch of questions initially, but the presentations answered it, so I appreciate that. The amendment does cause me to think a little bit, because I think the intent here is to try and get more eggs available sooner. The portion about doing the report, to me, seems more like a consumer protection type of a statutory change rather than an emergency need to address the egg supply. And so I'm just not sure how that really fits. That's just my perspective. Thank you.
Thank you for that question. Howard Watts for the record. Again, I think in conversations, and again, I just have to thank everyone who's been a part of this process, folks at the table as well as others who are going to come up. This has been a real collaborative effort. And one of the things that was sourced through that is we all know the pain that people are feeling at the dramatic increase in the price of groceries, and eggs have really been at the forefront of that. So it's important that at the same time we open up this set of tools to try and address that and try and bring those prices down as soon as possible, that we also take a deeper look into those issues and into those disparities. Again, the supply chain is complex, but we want to make sure that we have a hold of everything. And you're absolutely right, Assemblymember DeLong. It's a consumer protection issue. A lot of that may be totally reasonable. Some folks may be making large long-term orders for eggs that they're locked into with a supplier, and so they're able to provide, they're able to maintain supply and maintain lower prices, while somebody that had smaller, shorter-term orders is now having to pay more. We want to get some of that information and make sure that that all of that is sound and backed up at every level of the supply chain, by the way, so that we can see how that's moving through and make sure that everything's on the up and up.
Thank you, Chair Warren Hardy, for the record. I would just add to that, you know, we thought about that. It was clear to us and clear to our conversations with Assemblyman Watts and the director that the main objective was to get these things to market, get these things into the refrigerators of the people at home and the restaurants that need to do it. If we thought that portion of it detracted for that or did violence to that part of it, we would not have proposed it. We don't think it does. We think it's something that can be done simultaneously. And I can tell you, I'm not a legislator anymore, but I still get a lot of calls from my former constituents, and they want to know why. And so I'm sure it's a perfectly reasonable answer, but I think the public ought to be able to understand that part of it as well.
You have a follow-up? Okay, thank you so much, and thank you for those answers. Assemblymember Hanson.
Chair, thank you for being here. I wanted to, you mentioned, Dr. Goicoechea, that there is a source for us to get eggs. I was curious, could you explain to us what stable source is there for us to get the eggs as opposed to, you know, what we're seeing happening? I think you said in 58.9% of all table eggs from those cage-free states. Could you clarify that?
Assemblymember Hanson, Director Goicoechea, for the record, thank you for that question. Yes, as you move farther east, obviously transportation costs would increase some with those. States of Iowa, Indiana, Ohio have large populations of layers in them. We are able to source some eggs from there now that do have cage-free farms on them, but there are many that are not cage-free in those areas, number one. Number two, with the amendment now and the grade B eggs, as Assemblymember Watts said, they're just as wholesome. There's no risk to them at all. They're cosmetic blemish. Maybe the yolk looks a little different when you break it. We can access those from those Midwest states as well and see a big difference. The price point between California eggs and New York eggs is what the USDA shows, and there's nearly $3 a dozen difference from coast to coast. That much cheaper on the east versus the west. So as we go that way, they cheapen up and we can get more of them here.
For that, and then I have a question actually on the amendment for Mr. Hardy. On the B, on 1B, reducing any governmental purchases of eggs to free up more supply for grocery stores. Could you give us some examples of how governmental acquisition of eggs, like what they're being used for, how we're gonna juggle that?
Thank you, Chair and Assemblymember Hanson. I appreciate that question. I don't know. What we did is we talked internally about this. We said, what are possible potential barriers to getting anything to the consumers? And that was one of the issues that came up. Our intent is to leave this to the experts. What we did not want is for this to be so narrow in its scope that Director Goicoechea and his professionals, who are just that, couldn't follow the data and the facts to where they led and be able to address them if they got there. I'm not sure there is anything with regard to governmental eggs. We just didn't want to limit the director and his folks, and I will say absolute professionalism from these folks. So we just wanted to make sure that every possible cause of the egg shortage was available to the director and his folks to be able to try to solve the problem.
Assemblywoman, Director Goicoechea, for the record, if I may. So today in Nevada, we do not do large scale or really any governmental purchases of eggs, but we could in the future. There are many programs that we could access eggs if we chose to. Home Feeds Nevada, for example, would be a government purchase of eggs if we were to do that. We don't, because we do have difficulty sourcing cage-free eggs and do not want to compete. In the future, 5-6 years down the road, if we have another event where this applies and we are purchasing those eggs, if it is deemed that stopping that for a while will help the retail side, that is what this is in here for.
And Chair, if I may add, Warren Hardy again, if you'll notice, Assemblymember Hanson, the amendment says include but not limited to. And I just want to clearly state for the record, we want Director Goicoechea to be able to chase every possible aspect to get this problem under control. So we want anything and everything.
so much, and I've got a few more questions, and then Assemblymember DeLong, I'll let you take another chance, or another hit. Assemblymember Karas.
Afternoon. Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to commend Assemblymember Watts, Speaker Yeager. I'm going to just say Dr. G because that's a mouthful. And the Humane Society for your joint effort to alleviate the stress this has put on the people of Nevada. As we all know, our underserved communities really use eggs as a primary source of protein. So I really thank you all for this very much. And do we know how soon we could see this relieved? I know I paid $11 for 18 eggs.
Assemblymember Director Goycochea for the record, so I will take a stab at that. I will not tell you that if this is passed next week and we suspend the rules, that in 2 weeks you will see a drastic change, but we will see a slow change at the grocery store and also in working with our friends in the retail section. We know we can source those eggs as soon as we get those contracts ramped up and in place. Within 30 days, we should start to see a lot more eggs on the shelf. And if we can keep those transportation costs where we need them, we can see that dollar amount start coming down.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Assemblymember Gurr.
Thank you, Chair. Quick question along Assemblyman DeLong's question. Is there a process in place for the reporting of these different prices and the consumer protection, or do you have to build a whole new system to go out and investigate why one company's doing it one way and one company's doing another? And would that be time consuming, and is it going to cost us more money to go do that?
Thank you for that question, Assemblymember Gurr. Howard Watts for the record. And I'll also let the department speak to this. You know, we didn't want to load this up with lots of additional requirements. We just want to try and get that information out there. So instead of putting a lot of details in what has to be included in that, again, we want to make sure that we're looking at every level of the supply chain and that we just have some more context on why we see some of these discrepancies in prices. So we're trying to, again, make sure that there's flexibility so that we can get the result, we can get the information and education out to members of the legislature, out to members of the public, without, so that's important to us, but without putting unnecessary additional burden on the department during this time.
Madam Chair, Warren Hardy, Humane Society of the United States. I would simply say this is not a committee, this is not a study, this is not anything that requires money or even time. We just want to acknowledge and have some comment made on why that's occurring for the public to better understand. I'll be honest with you, I feel like there's a really good explanation for it, and that's what we're looking for. There's no authority to act here, there's no, enforcement authority to act here. It's why is it happening to help the public understand. I am going to be very unsurprised if it's a perfectly good answer. But that's the answer the public's talking to me. That's the thing the public's talking to me about is not just the supply, but why the variation. They understand why egg prices are high. It's the avian flu. They get that. They don't understand why it's $6 at one place and $11 at the other. So not trying to weigh this down at all, just trying to say we want to say something to the public about what's happening with regard to that part of it, because they're drawing their own conclusions, and that's not helpful for anybody.
Madam Chair, through you to Assemblymember Gurr.
Oh, please, just go direct.
Sorry, Director Goycochea. I'm going to disagree with my colleague at the end. It's going to take some time from somebody to compile this, but we will get you a good answer as well. We have a lot of reports that we can dig through and find this. There's a big variation in where you're buying your eggs and what those eggs are. And that tends to be what we see. If you're at a Trader Joe's versus a Walmart, or you're at another chain grocery store versus a boutique, and where they're sourcing those, we can put that into a report and we can make a lot of sense out of that. We will be able to tease out A, AA, B for the for the legislature so you guys can better understand and all of our constituents, the departments and yours, can understand why we see those fluctuations maybe just across town. So we're happy to do that. We can pull those reports apart and get it in a more concise place for everyone to look at.
Follow-up?
Thank you all. Yes, Chair. Thank you all for those answers. That's what I was looking for. Is there a method that we don't have to build it and we can get it done anyway? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next up, Assemblymember Jackson.
Thank you, Chair. In regards to regulations, why was the state quarantine office chose to make this decision?
Assemblymember Director Goycochea, for the record, NRS 583 lies within the authority of the state quarantine officer, which is by statute the director of the Department of Agriculture. So that is why that state quarantine officer is referenced in here. That is where the authority in that chapter lies.
Thank you. Assemblymember DeLong.
Thank you, Chair. I was just looking at the language that the Humane Society provided, and yeah, it says regulatory suspensions included but not limited to. So is the intent of this amendment to provide regulations, which I think is already in the bill? And if it's not, if it's actually to put it in statute, the concept of saying included but not limited to makes the statute, it could go anywhere. A little bit of clarification on, because we don't have any actual language of what this looks like, particularly if we're going to a work session in the next 30 minutes. It'd be good to have some actual language to see.
Thank you for that. Howard Watts for the record. So I appreciate those questions. So again, the fundamental is we want to increase that toolbox. We want to have all the options on the table. So the ones that you see listed out are ones that were sourced from some initial conversations and investigation. The, including but not limited to, that leaves the door open for other options as well for our experts over in the Department of Agriculture. And again, we'd be talking about, to the maximum extent that we're able to do it, suspending or creating some additional regulatory flexibility during that 120-day period when we meet all those criteria. There's an entirely separate piece, which is the ability for the department to craft regulations. And as we go through this, hopefully quickly, to get relief to people and get our grocery prices down, we're going to learn from that, and the department may, doesn't have to, but may adopt regulations governing how this would work in the future. And it can include those items, and because it's not limited to those, they could also identify and delineate additional actions, additional tools in that toolbox.
Here's that brought up one more question from Assemblymember Hanson.
I guess I'm trying to get comfort. I guess I want to ask and put the director kind of on the spot. Can you explain to me, in your own words, in your experience, how this amendment really does help? I was feeling like the bill probably provides what you need, and I'm thinking there might be some areas we're stepping into with the amendment that maybe is making us have some reservations. And are my reservations or perceived ones, is it too broad? Do you get what you need with just the bill without the amendment?
Assemblymember Hanson, Director Goycochea for the record. So I will admit the amendment is broad, and I like it broad. It does give a lot of latitude right now to that state quarantine officer. I do like the fact that we have the ability to create regulation. None of us will be here forever, and in 25 years when that next disease or emergency is here, I think it will be very important that we have regulation to dictate how we pull the trigger on this and exactly which direction we shoot. And so we are committed to put those regulations in. there's really nothing that says, well, we can't sell grade B at the store now. I think by having it in there, it will give a lot of comfort to our consumers knowing it's okay. And this is why we're doing that. And also to bring those, it's giving us direction to help go to our smaller producers, the under 3,000s, and we can get those on the shelf. Our staff already works very aggressively on getting those producer certificates done and getting them inspected so that they can sell. This will give us another reason to push that throttle even harder.
Go to Vice Chair LaRue Hatch. Thank you, Chair. Thank you for bringing this. So actually, I think my colleagues just brought up a thought that hadn't occurred until this moment. Would it be possible maybe to say, instead of not limited to, but may include? So then there's a list and there's variety and there's options. I think the concern is just if we say not limited to, then you could do literally anything and there's no oversight. So I just wondered if you could speak to that issue.
Thank you, Howard Watts, for the record, and we're doing some work here with a pencil on a piece of paper, and we see where it says the regulatory suspensions should include, so we can put may include. So again, just clarifying that the whole concept, and I think you just heard the director speak to it, we want to make sure that all the tools are available. We don't want to be, we want to give some ideas, but we don't want to be restrictive. Again, I think this is one example of a broad group of stakeholders coming together to tackle this problem, to lower grocery prices for Nevada families, and actually to expand the scope of a policy from where we originally started to make sure that we're delivering the best results possible.
Madam Chair, if I could just add to that, I think that these are good questions, right? Anytime you talk about a policy like this, it's always concern about overreach and going too far. I think the limitation on this, though, is included in the original bill. If you don't focus on the amendment, it's this emergency is declared, and these issues take effect under a very limited set of circumstances. So really, that is limiting in and of itself in terms of when the state can act, and we just don't want to limit how they can act. Once the emergency is declared, we understand it's a problem. Within that very narrow framework, they should have all tools available. And so I think focusing on the bill and the limitation of the bill itself, I think is important in the context of Ms. Hanson's question.
Follow up? Yes, please, Vice Chair.
Thank you so much, Chair. So that actually gets closer to what my original question was, which is I think we are all very concerned about the safety of our food. And I know that we have the quarantine officer and we have this very limited, narrow scenario in which this is going to happen. I just wondered if you could speak to what are the safety and health requirements that will still be in place even under this to ensure that our food is still high quality and safe?
Director Goykochir for the record. Great question. So at no time can we, nor would we, import any product, whether it was a meat product, a live animal, or in this case, eggs, into the state that was not inspected and had gone through that inspection process. The USDA is very, very stringent on the inspection of those eggs. I will tell you that today, with High Path ongoing, there are areas that are adjacent to control zones that are infected with high path avian influenza. No eggs can ship out of there unless the state veterinarian gets the authority from me, thumbs up, we can receive those, and goes into what's called an EMRS system, Emergency Management Response System, and allows that shipment of eggs to come in. So we look at that, we're sure they've been inspected on that end, we know they're clean, we have to pull the trigger to let them come in. There is no way we're gonna do anything that would risk or jeopardize the health of Nevada citizens. Absolutely not.
Great, thank you so much. And I, again, just want to point out, again, as was pointed out earlier, Section 1 states it very specifically that this is only at these times that this would be happening. And so, yes, the regulation information is being brought up in the amendment, but this is only at this time. Is that correct?
Howard Watts for the record, yes.
Thank you so much. Any other? We've got one more person.
So, thank you, Chair. So the Chair brings up an interesting question. Oh, this is only gonna happen when the emergency's declared for 120 days. Does that mean the report has to be out in 120 days? If it's not done, then it goes away?
Howard Watts for the record. So we would like to get some of that information in terms of the pricing out within 60 days. Again, so that we have information out to the public as we're navigating this. Then, as long as those conditions are met and within the limits that have already been discussed in the bill, the Department of Agriculture would have the ability to issue these suspensions of some of these other standards for up to 120 days.
Thank you, Chair. So let me put this a different way. In 10 years, we're not talking about high path, but there is a disease, and a state quarantine officer wants to suspend this statute that we have to have cage-free eggs. He or she is not going to make that decision without some background and to know. So based on that, today, if you want something in writing, I could get Juliana to type it up overnight, and we could have it to you in the morning of why I reached out to the assembly member and why we started working together. We already have a lot of this information. I can get it to you, and I do think it's valuable in 60 days to get that to the public so they're not asking the same question. We're all wondering, why did you do this? Is it really going to make a difference? And are you sure we needed to do this? We have the information, we can put that out. I think it puts everybody's mind at ease, and we are committed to being able to do that within 60 days of suspending the rules.
Thank you so much. And last call for questions. No. Thank you for the presentation, and thank you for answering all of our questions. We'll now open it up for public comment. Just as a reminder, you'll be asked to, now I need to figure out where I put my notes. Again, thank you, Assemblymember Watts and all of your co-presenters. We'll now hear about 20 minutes of support. We'll ask for you to keep it under 2 minutes. And ditto always works well. So 20 minutes in support, 20 minutes for opposition, and 20 minutes for neutral. We will start here in Carson City.
Madam Chair, I will start. Director Goycochea, for the record, from Nevada Department of Agriculture. We are in support of this bill for the reasons that we have stated before, and we would like to again thank everyone and this body for taking this very important matter up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Olivia Tanager with the Sierra Club's Toyabe chapter. For the record, I'll be brief. We feel this is a common sense solution. We know that all of our members across the state of Nevada have been having a hard time accessing affordable eggs. Obviously, we want to make sure that chickens are treated well and that we have healthy eggs in the state of Nevada, but we also want to make sure that our families can put food on the table and that they're getting appropriate protein and nutrients, and feel that this is a common sense solution to address an obvious problem that we're all experiencing. So thank you.
For the record, Doug Busselman, Nevada Farm Bureau. Thank you for this opportunity to speak in support of the bill. We also want to express our appreciation for those who have been involved in putting together this type of a flexibility package. The other thing I think that needs to be recognized is the timeliness of taking action. And we appreciate the priority that this bill is giving because of the crisis that we have going on. So thank you very much.
Brian Wachter, Senior Vice President of the Retail Association of Nevada. First want to thank Assemblymember Watts and Director Goycochea, and through him, the governor, when we first started mentioning this idea and this problem and this potential solution to leadership in December. They have been nothing but extraordinary to work with. I do want to obviously speak on behalf of our support of AB 171. Avian flu is the reason that we are out of eggs and they cost so much. This is one little relief valve that you have access to. I will say on the amendment, we are neutral. In terms of prices and discrepancies, eggs are some of the most commonly and most intensely tracked prices, especially given that they are based on commodity pricing. The FDA hosts and posts all of these egg prices all the time. That information is readily available. We are, however, neutral on the amendment, especially given the grade B eggs. Those eggs actually are destined for current consumers. There is not an egg market that has not been hit by avian flu, but grade B eggs are what you find in baked goods and what you find in salad dressings. And so by allowing or by choosing, if we have to bring grade B eggs in, we are going to see downstream price increases on those products that include those grade B eggs, because we are kind of borrowing from Peter to pay Paul. And so while we think that nothing should be off the table, we agree with the amendment on that for the department, for the director. We do want to wary that we are not replacing the high cost of eggs for the high cost of baked goods. Thank you, ma'am.
Good evening, Chair Anderson and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Nick Schneider, Director of Government Affairs for the Vegas Chamber. We are also in support of AB 171 as introduced. We'll have to review the amendment to take a firm position on that. Unfortunately, this has been mentioned, this is a nationwide problem. As many of you know, we do represent large and small businesses, all of which have been impacted, as well as the employees that fall under that purview as well. For our small mom and pop breakfast restaurants, right, even with, having to account for wage compression, these increases in egg prices are unfortunately slashing margins even thinner for them. For our larger members who have access and are able to purchase at scale for wholesale eggs, even they're still seeing issues. Between the end of 2024 and now, it's been between 64 and 73% price increases for them. And then, of course, for our Nevadan workers and their families, eggs represent a stable and affordable source of proteins, and access to them is essential to providing balanced meals for all of them. As my colleague, Mr. Wachter, had mentioned, eggs are a commodity. Even in that sense, prices have gone up 22% since the beginning of this year. So this is unfortunately something that doesn't seem to be relenting anytime soon. As such, we do ask for your support on this bill. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chair Anderson and committee members. Misty Grimmer with the Ferraro Group representing the Nevada Resort Association. I will be short and sweet. As you might imagine, we serve and buy a lot of eggs. And so we also are in support of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Peter Saba, Senior Government Affairs Manager for the Nevada Restaurant Association. We support AB 171 as written because it provides critical flexibility for Nevada's restaurants when egg supply disruptions occur. More than 70% of the nation's laying hens are in conventional production, which we typically can't source from due to existing restrictions. However, when supply chain disruptions or shortages occur, this bill allows temporary flexibility, helping restaurants access more options at lower prices and avoid costly shortages. Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, my name is Janine Hansen. I'm the state president of Nevada Families for Freedom, and we support this bill. The U.S. is dealing with the worst egg shortage it has ever experienced, and we can expect it to get worse. And many families are struggling just to put food on the table, and we appreciate this bill, which will help them. And I just want to say, as a personal note, I have 60 chickens of my own, and they are free range. And I get all kinds of calls from people who need eggs. I give a lot of eggs away, and it's really increased lately because of the shortages. And of course, Assemblyman, you're always welcome in Elko to get some. So thank you very much for those that brought this forward, and Nevada Families for Freedom supports it, and we also support the amendment.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. For the record, Miranda Hoover, State Executive for the Energy and Convenience Association of Nevada. On behalf of our over 1,500 convenience stores across the state, we are in full support. And I appreciate Assemblymember Karas's so eloquent statement about our rural population. As we do know, a lot of our rural population does get a lot of their groceries from convenience stores and is in and out of convenience stores on a daily basis where we do sell eggs. And so we simply see this piece of legislation as an additional toolbox to hopefully help the egg inflation that we have so severely seen in our state. So thank you very much.
Anybody else here in Carson City? Seeing no one. Is there anybody in Las Vegas that would like to testify in support of AB 171? Seeing no one coming to the table, is there anybody in Elko? Seeing nobody coming to the table. AVH, is there anyone who would like to testify in support of AB 171 over the phone?
To testify in support of Assembly Bill 171, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue.
Good afternoon. My name is Lynn Chapman, and I'm the state treasurer for the Independent American Party. And we appreciate the information that was presented here today. You know, our food supply needs to be protected, and having a plan in place really does help our future food supply, especially our important eggs, since I use a lot of them in cooking and baking. Having the tools in place to address anything that comes along really gives the people less worries about our food supply. So thank you for this bill, and we do support the amendment as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller.
Chair, there are no additional callers to give testimony at this time.
Thank you so much. So we'll next hear a testimony in opposition to AB 171. Is there anyone in opposition in Carson City? Seeing no one come to the desk, anyone in Las Vegas or Elko? Seeing none, AVH, is there anyone who would like to testify in opposition of AB 171 over the phone?
We have no additional callers on the line to give testimony.
Thank you. We'll now next go to neutral. Is there anyone here in Carson City who wishes to testify in neutral to AB 171? Seeing none. Checking Las Vegas. Elko. And AVH, is there anyone on the phone that would like to testify in neutral to AB 171?
We still have no additional callers to testify.
Thank you so much. Assemblymember Watts, would you like to make any closing remarks?
Thank you, Chair. Again, for the record, Howard Watts. Thank you so much for your time and consideration of this important issue. Again, we know that so many Nevada families are struggling to make ends meet, and this is something that we can bring such a broad group of people together on to take action and help deliver some relief. I just want to note a couple things. You know, we heard from some folks that are still digesting the amendment, some of the potential concerns. I, for one, especially in the process of working on this piece of legislation, but also in my interactions with the Department of Agriculture, have full confidence in that department to ensure that anything they're doing is not going to be counteractive. So, for example, with the grade B egg issue, if that's going to be something that is just going to shift the problem around, I have full confidence that that is something that the department will evaluate and then take the appropriate course of action. At the end of the day, we just want to make sure those tools are in the toolbox. One other thing that I want to make extremely clear, even in a time of uncertainty, is that it is absolutely the intent that under no circumstances would any health and safety protections be undermined or suspended by the provisions of this bill, even with the proposed friendly amendment. So I just wanted to make sure that the legislative record is extremely clear on that front. And again, really appreciate your time and consideration of this critical piece of legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblymember Watts. Okay, so I will close the hearing on AB 171. As you may have noticed on the agenda, we do have a work session scheduled for this bill. Pursuant to Assembly standing rules, a committee may not take final action on the bill until at least 24 hours after the close of the hearing, unless the speaker has approved otherwise. As we heard from Speaker Yeager on the opening day of session just a week ago, does not feel like just a week ago. It's only been a week. It is important that we fast-track legislation to lower cost. Nevadans are counting on us to deliver results, and AB, or Assembly Bill 171, will help lower the cost of eggs for all Nevadans, regardless of political affiliation and or whether they live in a big city or small town. It is our responsibility as elected officials to do what we can to make life more affordable for our constituents. So Speaker Yeager has waived that 24-hour rule for us. So we will be able to have the work session right now. Since this is our first work session, I will explain that a work session is not a time for additional testimony. However, as chair, I might at times ask one of the interested parties to come forward to ask a question or clarify an issue, especially if there are significant amendments or if the amendment was received shortly before the work session. So with that, we will get started with the work session. Committee members, before I ask for a motion, are there any questions on AB 171? Assemblymember DeLong.
Actually don't have any questions. It's more of a statement. I'm in favor of the bill. I mean, don't get any of my questions to the opposite. I think it makes sense. We've got current statute that says you have to have cage-free eggs. And we're doing an amendment to say, oh, we don't have to have cage-free eggs. That cuts to the heart of what we're doing, which makes sense to me. We have an amendment, apparently, but we haven't seen what the bill is actually going to look like with the amendment. At least I haven't seen it. I'm hoping the chair or the vice chair or someone else has it, but it's going to be tough to vote on a bill if we haven't seen the language. I don't want to start doing what Congress does. So,
Well, I don't believe we are, and I do believe the amendment was uploaded to Nellis, and I believe we can get you a copy of that. However, Assemblymember Watts, would you like to explain as well?
Thank you, Chair. So the amendment was submitted as a conceptual amendment. We frequently have conceptual amendments submitted to this body for consideration. Based on the bill presentation, all the answers provided by those presenters, that helps inform our legal counsel in drafting that amendment. So the way I'm going to proceed is I am comfortable with my understanding of the bill and what the amendment seeks to change in that. I'm going to make sure that the amendment lines up with that intention before I cast my final vote for it on the floor.
Thank you. Vice Chair LaRue Hatch.
Thank you, Chair. So just to confirm, we do have the conceptual amendment submitted by the Humane Society, but to clarify, we are changing regulatory suspensions should include, and we're changing that to may. We may be getting rid of the not limited to or may not, but we're going to make very clear that nothing with health and safety can be changed. Is that correct? Do I understand that correctly?
Thank you.
Assemblymember Watts.
Thank you. Yes, and that's why I wanted to make sure the record was extremely clear. So I know there were some questions around that should, so we can change that to may include but are not limited to, and want to make it absolutely clear. And if it's the chair's discretion, can ask the director to come up, but under no circumstances, absolutely no circumstances, will health and safety standards ever be paused, suspended, revoked in any way.
Director Goicoechea, if you'd also like to weigh in on this.
Director Goicoechea, for the record, thank you, Chair. So regardless of if we suspend this statute or not, there are federal regulations that we must comply with for food safety regardless. And we will continue to comply with those regulations in addition to any state regulations or statutes that we have. This will in no way change any of that. This is strictly for us to find additional sources of eggs in a time of an animal disease emergency, foreign animal disease emergency, or a natural disaster.
Thank you, Director, and thank you for both Assembly members as well. Feel better, okay? Great. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, I am more than happy to take a motion to either pass and amend and do pass.
I move to pass.
amend and do pass, or simply pass? A motion's been made by Assemblymember DeLong, second by Gurr, to amend and do pass AB 171. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor of adopting the adopting AB 171 with an amend and do pass, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Hearing none, the motion has been adopted unanimously. So thank you very much. So sorry, just a moment. Assemblymember Watts, would you be able to do the floor statement for us?
Certainly.
Thank you so much. At this time, I will open it up to public comment. Would anybody like to make public comment here in Carson City? Anybody in Vegas? Elko? I have a feeling there's nobody on the line, but I'll still open it up anyway. Is there anybody?
Chair,
on
the public line is open and working, but there are no callers on the line.
Thank you, AVH. All right, that concludes our meeting for today. So at this point, so I greatly appreciate that. Our next meeting will be on Wednesday. Hope everyone has a nice day.